don't plan to have anything. I'll work on anything that gets on the agenda and gets a vote for a go ahead, but I'm not doing anything on my own by myself here.
All right. So Joe, if you don't have a specific item for agendas, I had something that I thought we should address in this committee meeting. And that is that I don't feel it is well defined what exactly the purview of this committee is, right? Because I was operating on the assumption that the purview of this committee was how will the village communicate and when will the village communicate? But it seems like, you know, in recent conversations and in communications committee business updates, there have been what is the village to communicate kind of conversation. And I didn't believe what the village communicates is necessarily the purview of this committee. So I think if we don't have anything else pressing on our agenda, we should discuss that and come to an agreement as to what exactly is our scope.
Well, I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that because it's not, I don't feel like we, I feel like we're kind of lost here. It's, we just don't have a purpose. We don't have a purpose, really.
Well, and
yeah, go ahead, Tiffany.
oh no, that was actually me.
Oh,
Go ahead, Tiffany, if you had something to say. All right. So I think we have a purpose, right? Because the village has long been accused of not communicating, right? And it's because communication has been limited to a few number of channels. Those channels have been at times irregular, right? So we have a purpose. Our purpose is to ensure that we have adequate channels and that those channels are utilized regularly, right? That's what I see as our purpose. But then if we're spending time, you know, again, that's the how and the when. But when we're spending time on the what, you know, regarding, you know, what resources the village has for COVID-19 communications, I think that's outside of the purview of this committee, right? If we are, you know, those are the kinds of things that I think is beyond our scope and should either, like if that to me sounds more community than it does communication. Communication should be here ready to say, if the community committee says we have a community need for this information, the community then says, great, we have a newsletter coming up on this day. This is how you get that information out on our website. This is how you engage the text blast that we've been working on. This is how, you know, is it worth a letter, right? Is it worth the $700 it's going to cost to mail everybody in the village a letter? Those are the kinds of questions that I think the communications committee should be addressing.
So in terms
communications is a big subject. This
in
began,
terms
I
of-
kind of, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, I had this sheriff's helicopter buzzing right over my head. I don't know if you could hear me at all. It was interfering. I couldn't get online. Anyway, sorry.
No, I'm
It's
just
gone.
saying that in terms of the what or the who, what, I think we just talked about in the council meeting that it would be good to communicate about what we know from planning and zoning about the Westerville School. So at that point, I think Tiffany said she said basically it's already on the website and maybe I can't remember if you were going to write something in the newsletter or not. So I guess what you're saying is that's as far as we need to go, because now we know it's going to be probably in the newsletter. And
yeah. So to take your example in my opinion, from the purview of this committee's responsibility is to make sure that the website is such that information can get on it, right? That the newsletter is available for information to go out, right? And if we feel additional communication channels are necessary, that we develop those as well, right? But as far as deciding whether or not the information coming out of planning or zoning needs to be published, that either needs to come from planning and zoning, raising their hand and saying, hey, we're working on important stuff. We need this communicated to the residents, or from the planning and zoning liaison who says, hey, planning and zoning is working on important stuff. It needs to be communicated to the residents. And then they insert that into those communication channels. Right. I don't think we can be combing through every committee's meetings and pulling out what needs to be reported. That is a super inefficient way about going about things and doesn't allow this committee the scope to do what I think is actually what it was originally charged to do, which was improve the nature of the communications.
So if the number of council people hear from residents that they would like more information besides what we provided on a topic, whatever it is, then our job would then be to just alert either the mayor or the committee, the appropriate committee, and request them to take care of it.
Yeah, again, so if the nature of the request is, hey, I'm allergic to paper and I don't do computers, so you need to communicate to me some other way, right? Then we can look at the feasibility of finding some communication channel that works for the people outside of the tools that we've made available, right? That's another thing that could, if we gotta figure out passenger pigeons or messenger hawks or whatever it is, right? We should always be looking for ways to improve the method and timeliness of our communication. But again, looking for what to communicate, I don't think that is what this committee is about. But people are allowed to tell me I'm wrong, right? I'm willing to listen to other opinions.
Well, I think this is the best subject we could have. What happened in the beginning was with the website, I kind of deferred to our new mayor. And Tiffany, you could jump in here, but the administration had a lot of needs and desires of what to do with the website. So I wasn't going to try and jump in and mess with it. I think it's sufficiently going now that it has a lot of capability. Then this COVID thing came up. So those are the two things that entered since we really got started. Typically, we're a really small place, but in other places they have departments, not committees for communications, and they're always under an administration. So I'm used to this other way in the corporate world. So whatever it is we decide we want to do, I think, defining it and hashing it out, like you said, Brian, is an excellent idea. But as far as other committees go or other departments, I would think we could get something out whereby they could submit anything they wanted, or was under our purview, or
They
the newsletter kind of doing the newsletter, so we can hash all this out.
Right. Every committee already has the ability to put a committee report into the newsletter. And I'm certain that if a committee had a desire to put a report on the website, they could do that. And I believe that is part of the overarching design of the new website, is that committees would be able to directly make that report. So those communication channels are in flight. Right now, I think that our mission as a communications committee is investigating new forms of communication, right? And in those lists, I know we've already talked about emails and text messages, right? Those are things that we have discussed and haven't really finalized, but those are the things that we are continuing to investigate. But again, so you mentioned COVID. I don't think this committee has any position to be putting forward information regarding COVID for communication. That's not in the purview of this. Well, we right, we have not yet, but I feel like that has come up more than once as, what information are we putting out and when and how, and that is something that has definitely come up more than once.
And just to say, I mean, as far as that goes, we have had both chiefs communicating with administration. I've been communicating. Obviously, there's really not too much to communicate with you guys, just for the simple fact that, I mean, if we're all living under a rock at this point, I think we all know to wash our hands and all of that kind of stuff. At some point, it becomes, what more do you want out there? You know, as far as the COVID comes, you guys are going to see, as the park was closed, we put that update out there. Anytime there's been an update, again, both chiefs have been communicating. Chief put a thing in the newsletter. It was actually put on the front page of the website. So, I mean, the COVID stuff has been done. Administration has been doing it. Again, no, we're not putting a new posting out every single day. Yes, I know some larger cities are doing that. But for the most part, I mean, we did the basics. We're giving updates as we open the community building. We'll be giving updates as the park opens, the basketball court. We'll be giving updates on all of that. It's all going to be done. Again, I know you guys know that my goal is to have the newsletter out next week. At this point, she's not received anything from anybody except for the blurb that David put in. So if anybody wants to have anything in there, and that's pretty
When's the
common. I mean, we haven't had a lot of, sorry,
When's the cutoff
say
again?
that again.
When's the
I
cutoff
mean,
again?
honestly, I was hoping like the 19th or 20th,
Okay.
just because the meeting is the 18th. And obviously, and we have a couple food trucks coming. The whole point to it was because I thought I was going to be able to put like the Westerville City School thing in there before council had the third reading.
Right.
It would have actually gone in before council had the second reading. That was the whole reason as to why I really wanted to get everything in there. So if anybody could bring, so I mean, something to the table. I mean, it doesn't, you know, again, for communications, if there's something that you guys do want to put in there, again, it doesn't have to be just your committee report. If there's something you want to talk about, you know, native plants or something like that, feel free to submit it. You guys have to understand, we're throwing things in there just to fill the space. I mean, my report, you guys see my report normally. Yeah, pools this is this, and this is this. I don't have anything to throw in there. We're just filling space. You know, I'm looking for you guys to help try to fill some of the spaces, so we're not doing it. We're putting things like don't throw rocks. I mean, that could have been something totally different, but it's true. I mean, we did have an issue with it. So, you know, we're filling space with different things. But if somebody has a story that they want to write or anything like that, we want it. I mean, we would love to have somebody do something. We know how many people are interested in that kind of stuff. And you're not going to see one of those reports from me.
So two things. I will get you something for safety before
Awesome.
the cutoff.
Yes.
The other thing is, so then that raises the question. So we're talking about what is the scope of this committee? Is
Yes.
filling the monthly newsletter part of the scope of this committee?
Honestly, I still don't think so. I mean, I think it's just that in
Right.
general is just committees. I mean, committees and council people, you know, I can fill it. I'm the mayor, that's fine. But I would love to see, you know, I don't want to go to residents to fill it. I think that's something that you guys could fill some of the space. So to go back to it, I mean, the main things that we have are the newsletter, the website, the Facebook page. If you guys ever have anything that you want to post on the Facebook page, I have no problem putting it on the village Facebook page.
I'm sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
just had another thought gurgle up. So while we are on the newsletter,
Yes.
there had been some recent conversations about trying to merge once again the MPCA newsletter with the village newsletter. Have you had any additional conversation with MPCA regarding that?
They're doing their Zoom meetings right now, so we're going to see how that goes. No, I've not been meeting with people outside of this. Our office is closed, so hopefully their Zoom goes well.
Okay.
So have I talked to him? Yes, but have we made any decisions? No. I do know she went and got the information on how much it costs her to do hers. We have the information how much it costs us to do ours, finding out how much it costs to do both together.
Sure.
With one mailer, that type of thing, just making sure that nobody's paying more than the other person. So yes, we've started that part, but that's as far as we've gotten. Like, my thinking is Becky would still just do the whole thing. But again, that's something that we haven't gone all the way around. But again, that's, you know, and maybe not. They may have theirs, they may just submit theirs with ours and it go out together because they do have someone to do theirs.
Yeah.
And then
So-
they
Well,
go back.
They also just recently bought some fancy software to build it and stuff like that too.
Yes. So honestly, maybe they'll do it. I don't know for sure. And Becky may have enough on her plate. to do, once the newsletter is complete, you guys should, or the website, you guys should start seeing some stuff on that next week. I don't know how much, but as soon as I get it, you guys will start seeing it. Circling back to the email text blast, that was one of the things that I know we've talked about off and on for the last year. There could be some things on the website that could help us a little bit with that, but honestly, I would still prefer going through a company that does the email, again, not Nixle because it's too expensive, but doing a basic email text blast. One of the ones that we have talked about, I don't care which one. I think that that's something that we could start advertising on the Facebook pages, the newsletters, the website. And then, I know a lot of streets have talked about getting their street reps back to where they could actually submit that information to us if we were able to get some of the street reps, people that wanted to add to the email text blast. That would have been amazing for several things that we've had recently. The hard part about a lot of it is the newsletter only goes out so often. Most people don't go to the website. Yes, I've had people complaining because they haven't gotten the information that they wanted. They thought things were going to change. We know our website is horrible. How did I let this happen? The school being built. Again, everybody, I'm not going to go into that right now. So I've gotten the calls, I've gotten the emails, but an email text blast, I think, is still something that really needs to be looked into. I don't know if somebody wants to pick it up and take it and run with it again.
Well,
And then
I think
that's it.
Go ahead. That's it. Well, I think that, in terms of sticking with the theme of what the tools are for communication. The one thing that we talked about in 2019 was surveying people to find out, to get how they wanted to be communicated with, either in getting an email address, a phone number for texting, or their mailing address, or whatever, just getting their preferred way of communicating. So maybe instead of just surveying, since we have this community now, maybe instead of just putting something on the villager or putting something on Facebook, maybe we could actively collect this information in a spreadsheet and start, if we have the list of addresses and names, I still got my old directory, we could start ticking off the responses, putting them in a spreadsheet, however alphabetically or whatever, and then work with street reps or volunteers, depending on how many we end up with, where we didn't get a response, and just attack those people. The people who didn't respond, who we now don't have a phone number or an email address for, pick out those specific targeted people and either send them a letter or have a rep go over and try to talk to them one-on-one, or give them a phone call and try to create a master list. And hopefully then we could use that master list for blasting. Because I think most people will want to blast, honestly. Most people will. But that way we can hit everybody instead of just hitting only people who do Facebook and ignoring everybody else, or just hitting anyone who responds to the villager and ignoring everybody else. I don't like the ignoring everybody else thing. Being the communication committee, I think we should do more than just.
Well, here's the way I see it. Whether or not somebody wants to go door to door, to me, it needs to be some sort of postcard that has the information on it. The way that the text blasts work, you basically text a word to a number and it stores it in, because some people still don't want to give you their phone number. They don't want us to publish it anywhere. I think the other part to that is it becomes public record. And Brian, you can shake your head that I'm crazy on that one, because I'm not sure exactly where I'm going with this, but I don't know that we want to specifically collect it and write it down. To me, we would pass out the postcard and say, text the word Minerva to 1234, and that's how those work. And I don't disagree. I think it needs to be posted on the website, the newsletter, and all of that. But we could specifically either A, hand out the postcards, go knock on their door once we're allowed out of the house. And my internet is not stable, so if I log off, I'll log off back on the other one. But maybe we mail postcards to every single house and tell them that they have 30 days to register their cell phone number to be part of the text blast. I think that there's, again, I don't disagree. We have to make sure that people are all,
Yeah, I
So in
agree
real
that,
general
I
terms,
don't
we
know
can
if you can
kind of
hear
say
me 'cause
things
my internet is not
regarding.
saying-
hang on, there's two people talking, I think.
Who wants to
I
talk
got
first?
problems too.
Yeah, my internet was misbehaving.
Joe, do
Can
you
am
wanna
I
say
Well, I'll
clear
jump
now?
in.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say that typically when it comes to the newsletter or anything along those lines, it's kind of filtering through Tiffany, the mayor. So we could kind of accept that. That's untypical of communication committees and departments elsewhere, but that's fine. But then other committees, when they want to do something, going to go through the mayor's office. Would that sound about right? So you kind of have a micro communications department as well as
It doesn't,
committee.
I don't actually want it to go to me. I would prefer it go directly to Becky. I don't want to see, I'm not monitoring anybody's. Anybody can send it
Well,
directly to the person that does the newsletter. If somebody wants, if the communication committee wants to take over the newsletter, then we can discuss that. But I actually don't manage it at all. Send them directly to Becky.
So back
Well,
to
I didn't mean you
a,
personally. I meant
text
administration
message, email
versus the town.
message.
I bet just to close
So if we
on
can go
what
back to
Joe's
the, the
saying,
opting in process.
I don't know that you have some latency going on, Brian.
Yeah, let me,
Everything's cutting in and
I
out.
think my internet is misbehaving. I'm gonna drop and join back.
Well, we could kind of say for the
Okay.
Must have
for the
wow.
moment we do both. If there's something that we come up with as a communications committee that we want in a newsletter, we know how to do that. If there's for some other reason, other people that want to, it doesn't have to be just one or the other, but pretty much the newsletter goes out from over to the mayor's office through the.
I think the reason that it comes out that way and I'm just gonna be the person to say it, is that's how we know it gets out. If we have it and somebody drops the ball on it and doesn't, again, I'm having a hard time getting, and I'm sure Lynn did too, people even to submit reports. So, if the communication committee isn't getting enough reports and they're waiting for people to do it, maybe I'm not saying this nicely, but it falls on my lap if the newsletter doesn't get out and doesn't get out to residents. So if it's sitting in the communication committee and if the ball drops, then the ball drops. So personally, I would just rather make sure that I know it's getting out. I know that sounds horrible, but I'm just going to say it. I just want to make sure that it's something that residents do expect. They expect the newsletter, and until we don't have it, as admin, I want to make sure that the newsletter gets out. I'm not saying that the communication committee can't do it. I'm just saying that this is the way I know it gets done.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And like Brian's saying, I don't think it's the
Well, before our
communications
next
committee's
meeting-
responsibility to do it.
No, we don't. We don't have an office. We don't have personnel. There's no telephone. So that this kind of, it's untypical of any other communication operation, big or small. But we as a committee can do. You can.
Right, so we're not
you
gonna
can
go there
let
because,
us know.
I guess, Joe, what are you wanting
I
to
don't think
communicate?
we
And
can,
maybe
I
we don't
think-
understand exactly how.
you're
want
either
to look at, we do
someone
that.
is either in charge of the newsletter or they're not. but you can't say, I have to be in charge because I don't think you guys can do it, or vice versa, because, you know, the communication, and I don't think everybody on the communication wants it, but, you know, but don't say, you know, because we've never done it. So we can't say we won't do it or it won't get done because we've never done it. So, but if you want to, I mean, say what you like.
Right, but I guess my
Anyway,
question is,
I don't think there's a will, because you can't, you're either in charge of it or you're not. So you Tiffany, you want to be in charge of it. You want
It's
the
always-
administration to be in charge of it. So that's it. Just,
no, here's what I would say. If somebody really wants to do it, but I think like Brian's saying, that's not necessarily how he sees the communication committee. And I think that's what we're talking about. So
Right.
if, you know, I don't
That is
know
what
that
we're
the
talking
communication, yeah, I don't know that the communication committee wants to take over.
yeah,
The
I'm just saying
actual
that's the way
Correct.
that it was done in the past is that the mayor's office handled the village newsletter. So
Right.
I am not willing to at this time contest that or
Right.
say that the communication
Well-
department, because I'm not the there's committee, there's three of us on the committee. So I'm not the person to make that decision if the committee, if
Yeah, I would
because it
support-
has to be an all or not, you've got to be, you know, the committee would then have to totally take it over and there would be a commitment and it would be as if, you know, I mean, that is something that would have to be a commitment on the part of this committee. And I don't know that, I don't think it's there.
Right.
Well,
I-
in
don't think-
January, I will tell you, it went that way. I left it and gave some free reign of it in January. And they were having a hard time communicating to actually get the information to Becky. I don't know the whole thing, but all I know is we ended up taking it back. But in January, I did kind of say, okay, this can be done. And it never got to where it was to where we could actually send it to the thing. Becky took it back over and Becky finished it up and then we sent it out. So that was kind of how January went. So we've just been doing it again ever since.
Is anybody actually advocating for the communications committee to take over the operations of the newsletter?
Joe's
Or
just
is-
saying it's normally not done this way. So I guess that's where I get, I didn't realize there was a way he didn't. I just want to know if he wants it done a different way. This is his communication committee, and I would just like him to tell us how he would like to see the communication committee go, because I don't want to step on toes.
Okay, so if we can stop here and ask Joe, are you advocating for the communications committee to take over the operations of the newsletter? And he's muted. I don't know if he knows he's muted or not.
Moving into the mayor's office, and then here's the issue. Typically, everywhere.
Joe,
else-
wait, Joe, please.
Answer the question.
It's a really
Answer the
easy
question.
question, just a yes or no. and
I'm
then we
going
can
to
move
answer it,
on
but I
from
need
there.
to say this first. We have two things. There's a micro and a macro level, or if you want to call it external or internal. Everywhere else outside of the village, when they see a thing that says communications committee, they typically are going to view that as the same as any other communications committee or communications department. So what we're doing is we're changing that around, but it made sense that since Tiffany was doing the newsletter, I mean, that's the only, Tiffany's,
Okay.
Mayor's office is the
Joe,
only place that
I'm
has a telephone.
going to try this.
And
I'm going to try this again. Because
So forth.
at this moment, all of that is extra. Right
I'm not-
now, there's
no,
a
I'm
question
not-
put to
I'm
you.
not saying that we want to take over.
Okay, good. If you aren't
Yeah, I'm
advocating for it,
trying to
I'm not
answer it, Brian.
advocating it. Yeah, but you talked for like 3 minutes when a no is all we needed.
What-
So none of us are advocating for the communications committee to take over the newsletter. So let's move on to the next thing. And so what is the next
You
thing?
can say what you want.
Okay,
but
so-
read the tons of stuff that everybody else goes by, that everyone else goes by when it comes to communications. So there's expectations of the communications committee from outside that
Joe,
we
me
need
ask
to
you, Joe,
define, just like you brought
Joe,
up the subject in the first
and
place. It's part of
I-
the defining of it. But as far as the newsletter goes, Tiffany's been doing a good job of it.
absolutely. But we keep on, it seems like we always come back to, shouldn't we be doing the newsletter? And none of us want to do it. So if Tiffany's glad to do it and none of us want to do it, why does it come up over and over again? Secondly,
I've done.
I will say we
Hold on.
want to do it.
Yeah. Secondly, you keep on saying that, the term communication committee has expectations. The only expectations we should care about is the definition that we have for what is our scope, right? And we can make our own definition of our scope. If the administration is happy with the definition of our scope, then they can be happy with it. If they would like us to do more or something different, they can make that request of us, right? But that's the only thing that matters. What other people think a communication committee is doesn't matter. It's what we think a communication committee is.
No, but here's the thing, all communications departments elsewhere are under a mayor's office or a governor's office or an administration. They're departments, not committees.
Yeah, we're not
So
a department.
What we're really talking about is we're a committee.
Right, we are a
Yeah,
committee
exactly.
that was formed.
But if we were
After-
a department,
Joe-
we have to have telephones and
Joe-
stuff. So this is why Becky makes sense.
Joe,
I'm trying
we are a committee that was formed
We're all saying
after
the same
years.
thing.
No, Joe, you're not listening at all. So we are a committee that was formed after years of residents' complaints
I am
of the
listening,
village
Brian.
not, yeah, which is why you interrupted me, which
Want me
is
to
after
say back word
years,
for word what you said.
we are a committee that was put together after years of residents' complaints about the quality and quantity of the village communication, which is once again why I am trying to express that the purview of this committee should be limited to the scope of the quantity and the quality of the village communications, right? And that's it, right? We make sure that we have the channels available.
Well, I
We
agree.
should, okay, then anything
I haven't
else?
heard anyone disagree.
Excellent. Then we are all in agreement. And anything that comes up outside of that purview, I will stop and remind us that we are outside of that purview. Is there anything within that purview?
Well, you can do
that we-
whatever you want.
I
I'll
usually
do
do.
the same thing.
Excellent. Is there anything else within that purview that we had
It's
to
up to
speak
all
of
of
tonight?
us. But I'm going to say it one more time. The newsletter typically, how else is it going to work? Becky's the staff person that does the typical type of thing that it takes to do a newsletter, and Tiffany's been doing it, and it makes sense. But I can work on that, Tiffany, if you like. If you have something you want to send to the committee for us to look at, what I'm saying is, I think that's fine.
No, I'm going to be honest. I honestly prefer. I would love if we got more. I would love if we got more of. And mine's unstable. I have WoW. I would love if people would send some stuff to additional articles. Again, we're getting outside the purview again. But if you guys want to send some articles or whatever, I would love to have them. I do not have an issue doing it because, again, I know it's done. I am that person. Sorry. But I know it's done. I know Becky's done it. She can ask me questions. She's sitting directly across from me and it works. So I don't have anything else to say about the newsletter. I think it's working fine.
Okay. There we
Yeah.
go. So I think the things that were left on our plate were.
But the text blast, I'm in for.
Yeah. So is anybody raising their hand to do some additional research? I know Diane had done some research on that previously. Did we have enough information to move forward? Or do we need to go gather more?
I'll do, I would take the spreadsheet I did and update it just to make sure that pricing is the same and features are the same and got all the different ones or options are still viable. And
Great.
so we can make a decision. A couple of them, at least 2 or 3 of them had free trials. We just would have to be ready to to do the free trial so we didn't waste the time. We could if we wanted to, we could trial a couple of them, 1 or 2, with some volunteer people, residents or whoever, neighbors, and do a couple email blasts of different kinds and ask people, how did it go? Did you like the format? Did you understand what was happening when you got the text? it'll look right, and then make a final decision. I mean, it's just I think that'd be something we could pace through pretty quickly.
Sure. So why don't we say that, Diane, if you can update that spreadsheet for next time, you can bring it to the group and we can look to make a recommendation to the rest of council on a product to move forward with at our next communications committee. Does that move us
We
forward?
can sketch out
Yeah,
move
a
us
rollout
forward.
plan.
Well, I'll get some materials together. I'll get some materials together myself and we can, review all of this stuff and then we don't have to do it right here on the spot. There's some stuff people can think about. I think the newsletter's working okay. Does everybody agree with that?
Joe, we've moved on from the newsletter. Right now, we're talking about text and email blast services.
I make one suggestion, and Diane, you already know I'm going to say this. I know there's some companies that only do email and some that only do text, and there's only a couple. So if there's a way to find a couple that do both, or at least one that does both to compare, because I know some don't do. When I called, there was like some it did one, and then you had to go through a second company to do the other. And I'm not saying we can't do that, but I would say, if there was a way to do one that, like Nixle, I hate to say it, it does both.
Yeah, I think that the main thing is that they all have when you dig in just peek a little bit more, you see they all have limits on the nut. They don't always advertise the limits, but there's limits on its number of text per month, or if you want to include a picture or not, that's different. So those things that made the difference between one another. One of them that I like did polling. I think there's only one or two that do polling. So if you wanted to ask a person, we're having ice cream truck on Tuesday, do you prefer chocolate or vanilla? Just to keep the residents interested, and taking a quick poll like that. It doesn't always have to be bad news in a text, but anyway, I'm just saying that there's one that has polling, there's one that has something else. I'll just lay it out. So
At least it gives you options. It'll give the committee options to look at and see pricing and see which one's worth it and which one's not. Yeah. Options are good.
I know that I was just to Brian's point that the texting that the call center that I've worked for in Winchester, Kentucky, all their call center agents, in order to get them to show up for work, because it's a challenge, they would say, we're having pizza on Friday. Would you prefer pepperoni or sausage on your pizza? And they would take a vote, and that the purpose of that was to try to remind people that if you show up to work on Friday, you might get pizza. So please show up for work. But it was just another way of going about it. So there's just ways to use polling that can be interesting, but not necessary. So because there is always a limit on the number of texts that you can do per month.
Yeah, again, I think it's great. I would love to be able to send out a reminder that Rita's Ice is coming on Saturday instead of, because here's where we are right now. Yeah, we're putting them on the Facebook page as they come, but it's still just the people that are visiting the Facebook page and the news and the website. Nobody else knows.
Gotta get that website up. Gotta get that website up and running.
It will.
You're just, so you're not relying on MPCA's Facebook page.
No matter how good the website is, it will never be a portal, right? Nobody's ever going to say, "Oh, it's good morning to me. Let me go check Minerva Park's website." Right? That's not going to be.
Well, that would be a
anybody's
challenge,
first.
wouldn't it? And if you put
Maybe we
some
need to do something.
If you put some good gossip on there, you might get people to look at it the way they do on Facebook. But that's not the purpose of the village website.
Right.
So,
We could make it entertaining though. We could try.
No.
well, I think the village website has to be the official website. And if we want to have some other entertainment thing, it needs to be different.
It does.
It needs to be different.
Right. So we have that moving forward. What else? We're coming up on an hour here. So what, is there anything else we need to accomplish in this, meeting?
Well, I think we covered a lot.
All right. So are you calling to adjourn the
A lot
meeting,
to-
Joe?
There's a lot to contemplate. People can let their thinking gel, but when the website is up and running, it'll offer some other opportunities for this to work a little better, in my opinion, because information can come from any source. So that may be something that would be good to put in a newsletter, and it would be a place where people could submit things, and then the
Well, Joe, you're cutting out,
the
cutting out.
website will give it's a little bit of a portal anyways.
Good news is it's coming.
All right. So that brings us back around to the questions. So there's, I think
So
we've
are we
gotten to a point
wrapping,
where there's
Joe?
nothing new to cover. Are you calling this, meeting to, an adjournment, Joe?
Well, yeah, I
All
think,
right. Well
you
then,
know, I'll get some stuff ready for the next one, and anybody that, you know, has more further thoughts on this can do the same, and we can. So
I
don't have a gavel here. Audio's cutting in and out on everything. So
so then why don't we just call
I
this
move
meeting
that we
adjourned?
we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
okay. See ya.
Aye. See y'all later.